Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Only Land Fan Show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Brian Snider. Brian Snider, formerly a middle school math teacher, transitioned from education to real estate, where he led a successful wholesale team in Indianapolis, completing over 250 deals annually. He furthered his career as a coach and system implementer at Sharper Business Solutions. Now, Brian is the COO of the Collective Genius, a national community for real estate investors and entrepreneurs, leveraging his diverse experience to impact the real estate sector significantly. Brian, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
Super pumped to be here. Thanks for having me, Kendall. So excited. It's always good to chat with a former teacher, another former teacher. So
Yeah, when I saw that on your bio, I was completely like that. I was like, this is I'm with my people. It's so good. So definitely want to dig into that. So let's just jump right in. How did you get started in real estate, and how did you make that jump from that middle school math teacher position to real estate?
yeah, so I was a teacher, middle school math teacher for 14 years. Did it. Honestly, I hit all my goals, and that last goal for myself was always to become a principal. And then just that was the path. That's what I think a lot of teachers do is become a principal, superintendent, and on down the line, always looking for those kind of leadership opportunities. And honestly, I was just working on my master's to become a principal. Started doing my internship to be a principal and realized that was like the worst job in the world. And it does not fit my personality at all. And realized basically any decision you make, half the people like it, half the people don't. That, like I said, it doesn't fit my personality. Just started looking for something else and looking for, something else to do. I was ready to get out of the classroom, ready for that next challenge and stuff. And a buddy of mine here in Indianapolis, I'd known for a couple of years. I knew Brett Snodgrass through church and things like that. And Brett and I would go out. We bonded over basketball, and we go out every now and then and watch a basketball game, drink a beer, and just hang out. And I was kind of talking to him one day about leaving the classroom and finding that next thing. And I was like, I think I'll teach for one more year and just do something else. I don't know what that next thing's going to be. At the same time, his marketing person had just left his real estate business in Indianapolis. And he was like, why don't you just come work for me? I don't know anything about real estate. I don't know anything about what you do. The common joke but around our friends group was like everybody knew Brett was in real estate, but nobody had any idea what he was doing. Nobody knew what wholesaling was or what he did or anything. Yeah. So honestly, I just took a leap of faith in him and he took a leap of faith in me. And within a couple months, I was doing his marketing stuff, running his meetup here locally in Indianapolis. And I started selling deals and then moved into operations. And then eventually, Brett moved into the owner's box of the business, and I sat in the EO seat for him for 2 years. At the same time, yeah, our business coach, Gary Harper, kind of reached out to me. He's like, man, I love coaching you, and you with your teaching background, I think you'd be a pretty good coach too. So I started traveling around coaching for him and got to see the insights and the back of a lot of different businesses throughout the nation and stuff. At the same time, Brett and I we were members of CG, the Collective Genius, and we've been doing that for quite a few years. So I started facilitating some of their events, and then eventually got to the point where with Brett and I of just he wanted to scale the business back a little bit. Real estate was changing. I didn't feel like I was the person to jump back in the weeds of the business and stuff. I enjoyed coaching. I enjoyed helping other people. So CG had a spot open for as a CEO, COO, and it's the right timing and stuff. And so that's how I ended up with CG and excited to just still be in real estate and still my wife and I are still doing deals here locally in Indianapolis and stuff. But it's exciting stuff, man.
Wow, what a journey. That's incredibly cool. So can you talk a little bit about sort of what type of deals are your bread and butter right now?
So right now I want to be as passive as possible. So I just want to fund deals. So that's where I'm really at here in Indianapolis. We usually have my wife and I we really were trying to make that her full-time job of basically just running our lending business here locally. And we know a lot of really great businesses here in Indianapolis. That's where we're starting right now. And usually we have about 3 or 4 flips going on at any given time, just funding the deal and funding the rehab and helping some people out that we know. And it's going pretty well right now. So it's enjoyable and I will be quite all right if I never actually have a tenant again or anything like that and just can own anything on paper, whether it's a note or for lending on a deal or something like that. That's where I want to be as passive as possible and be the bank as much as possible if I can be.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know so many real estate entrepreneurs and investors, they talk about that evolution is you get started doing your own deals and then ultimately we want to just put the money to work, right? We
Yeah.
don't want to do the work, we want to put the money to work. So definitely recognize that. Can you talk a little bit about this 250 deals a year operation? And that really jumped out at me. So can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah, we were a high volume company. We were doing single family homes, we were doing some lots, we were doing some land deal. We were doing a little bit of anything and everything. And honestly, my first year within the business, I think that first year we did 364 deals. So it was crazy. But in saying that, like I was saying, we were doing houses, we were doing lots, we were doing anything and everything. And like our balance sheet showed it. We were just all across the board, basically. So we really just dug into, hey, let's not focus on, we knew we were a high volume business and that's what we prided ourselves on and what we were doing. And we really just took a look at it and dug in a little bit and said, hey, let's not necessarily focus on just doing as many deals as we can. What do we just focus on doing less deals and basically doing better deals? And that's what we did. Really, if we went from basically 364 to basically down to 250, and we doubled our profit within that. So we did way less deals, but doubling our profit that's what it was all about. So I think we were averaging at one point, we were averaging like maybe $6,000 a deal, and then we bumped that up to 15 really quickly. And that made all the difference in the world when we can still consider it a high volume business and stuff, doing 250 a year, but around $15 or 15,000 a pop. And we were still making pretty good profit and stuff like that. So definitely really just focused on what kind of deals we were looking at, not trying to please anybody and everybody and not just take down any deal try to make $1,000 on and stuff. But through that, we really understood like we turned our business into a math problem, which is what I always do as a former math teacher. I love that anyway, of
Yeah.
just business in general. If I can turn anything into a math problem, then that's what you need to be able to do in a business.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I've heard it said when you know what you're solving for, it makes it so much easier,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you make a really great point in terms of just because you can do the deal doesn't mean that you necessarily should be doing the deal. And so I'm sure that there may have been a little bit of hesitation or some resistance around, okay, we're actually going to do less deals, even though it makes sense on paper. We're going to be going after bigger deals. It should work out in our favor. We're doing this strategically. But what were some of the concerns that you guys had when you were making that transition from we're going to be going from a generalist business approach to a more specific niche down business?
Yeah, one of the things is just basically, are we going to be able to get the net profit on each deal that we needed to be able to, okay, if we pull this back, are we actually going to be able to hit our goals and stuff like that? And we realized really quickly we'd be able to. But one of the things that was interesting was we really prided ourselves, we were doing so many 364 deals a year. We really prided ourselves on making sure our buyers had really good deals. So one of our concerns, that's one of the things we definitely want to do, make sure our lenders have great deals, our buyers have great deals, and we're helping sellers out, of course. But one of the things that we really worried about was like, oh, our buyers going to get upset we had some buyers were buying like 15 to 20 properties from us a month at one point. It was crazy. So we're like, if we're pulling back on any doing certain deals, like that's going to upset them or affect them or anything. But the reality is, as long as you set like the expectations and have clarity with whoever you're working with, whether it's a seller, a lender, or a buyer, or whatever, having clarity with them and they understand where you're coming from and why you're making that strategic move, and they understand it is business. And hey, but at the same time too, maybe there's a deal that we couldn't do, then we just hand it off to the buyer anyway. Maybe it was a little too risky for us, or there wasn't anything we could do with it. It didn't fit our model, but if we thought it felt fit at one of the buy boxes of our buyers, we would just send it to them, and it was better for us in the long run. And we ended up developing deeper relationships because of that.
That is really cool. Now, I know that a lot of people that may be listening to this get super excited about the high volumes, just that term, high volume, 250 deals a year. Let's say someone's listening to this and they are just itching to start growing their business in a way that can support a high volume business. What are some of the principles that they need to really be considering when they're thinking about how do I grow into a type of business that can handle high volume?
Yeah. The reality is that I think it all comes back to Simon Sinek. It all starts with why. So why do you want the business that you want, and really figuring out what business you do want, especially with CG. I work with investors all the time. That's the number one word I think that everybody puts on their application is scale. Scale means a lot of different things. It means you're doing more deals, you're taking more risk, you're hiring more people. There's a lot of things that come with it. So I always just come back to like, why do you want to scale, or why do you want that high volume business and things like that? Because a lot of times you might end up doing more deals, but the manpower it takes to do that, marketing dollars it takes to put into that and stuff, you might not be as profitable as what it is. So making sure somebody understands like really why the reason they want that high volume business and what they need to be able to do with it, the amount of leads it takes to generate those number of deals, the amount of lenders you need to have lined up to fund those deals, and the having the infrastructure inside to when you're doing that many deals and you have that many leads coming in, you're gonna be so many there's gonna be so many leaks in your bucket within your funnel that it's crazy and stuff. So there's just a ton of stuff that goes in that. I always say is I'm a big fan of just getting better or going deeper versus going wider. So when somebody gets to that point where they're just talking about, man, I'm doing 10 deals right now. I want to get to 20. Okay, I always come back to, does that make sense to you? Number one, can you do it with the infrastructure you have? How many people does it take to do that? How many more dollars does it take to get to that point? And then can your business basically support you doubling your business or doubling your deal flow or anything like that? Which a lot of people just they don't think about that. They just say, oh, I just want to do more deals. Okay, are you going to be happier doing those deals?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think, especially when I was bringing you to the real estate business some 12 years ago, I thought, okay, I've got a system going. Now I just need more input so I can get more output. But that's not necessarily always the case whenever you're trying to grow your bottom line, right? Like you mentioned, you can do the same amount of deals, maybe even less deals, just bigger margins.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned that you guys actually started going after bigger deals. So is it as simple as just like flipping a switch and saying, okay, we're just going to change our criteria when we're starting to source deals? Or what types of changes did you guys have to make to your business model to support these larger margin deals?
Yeah, so I think it all starts with the marketing that you have to have the right data. So do you have the right data to go after the type of properties that you want to, the type of, whether it's properties in single family or whether it's multifamily, whether it's land, whether it's lots, whatever it may be, basically having the data that you need to generate those leads that you want and stuff. And then having coming into that, do you have the lead management structure? Do you have the process in place to handle those leads once they are coming in for it? And the biggest change for us though, we were pretty set on the data, we were pretty set on the marketing piece. The biggest change for us was just in the sales pitch. It comes down to being able to talk with the seller, figure out what they really need and what they're really looking for, figuring out what their motivation is to really support. That's really where the margins came in. When we honed our sales skills a little bit more, that's where those deals really came into because it's a different conversation you have to have when you're going after different types of deals and things like that. And your pitch has to change. What you're saying to the sellers has to change. And that's really where our margins really increase when we focused on that.
Did you find that it was a different type of seller? Like they had different types of motivations, or maybe any kind of differences in the key demographics of the seller that own these larger deals versus the smaller ones?
Yeah, it all depends on the different areas and stuff like that. Now, if we look at specifically, if you look at single family versus land, that's a completely different conversation. It's a completely different thing. It's you got to have the person you got to be able to when I got into land or have land conversations, it's you don't talk about the land until you're like 30, 35, 30 or 45 minutes into you're going to talk about the weather, you're going to talk about this, you're going to talk about that before you even start talking about the land. So really just having the patience to deal with a different type of seller was huge for us and understanding the types of conversations you had to have and things like that. There was definitely a lot that changed within the seller that we were experiencing, but then also the conversation we were having.
Yeah, that's really good insight. Now, you've had the unique experience to be able to coach many different types of investors in different types of niches. You've been around lots of different business models. We are seeing quite a few house wholesalers move into the land space recently. I'm one of those people. I had a house wholesaling background before I got into land. I finally saw the light, if you will, and I've been in land for about 3 or 4 years now. But the question that I have around house wholesalers and how we see those people moving into this market, what are some of the things that you are seeing that household sellers, like the skills that they have, or maybe the approaches or strategies that are doing really well in the land industry right now?
Yeah, I think it comes down to marketing. Really, when you're starting off in wholesaling, it's a marketing and sales business. It's not necessarily about the real estate. It's the marketing and sales side of things. When you have that figured out and you have that process dialed in for that, you can turn it around for anything. So you can go after multifamily, you can go after lots, you can go after acreage, you can go after a little bit of everything. Yeah, I see a lot of that now too. And then it's also just where the opportunity is. It's where it's what's out there. So if I know, for example, if I work for some pretty solid data providers and within their data, I know if they have land, if they can source land as well with their data, like why not? I'll take that on. Yeah, if I'm already marketing to sellers, I'm already doing this. Go ahead and give me those land leads as well, so I can go ahead and market to that because There's, especially bring it back to too, when I'm in a room, the collective genius, and I'm talking to all these different investors, and I have somebody beside me that is talking about just a land entitlement deal that he just did. I know more, hey, in my market, I can probably find a piece of land that I can partner with this guy on. And all of a sudden that $20,000 wholesale fee that I maybe would get, or that $100,000 land wholesale deal I might get, I can turn into a land entitlement deal. That's a whole different story. And there's a lot bigger margins on that. So I see a lot of people just going, and where is the opportunity and what is out there? And if I have, comes back to, if I have the infrastructure within my business to do it, if I know how to market, if I know the sales game, I can really pivot myself from single family or multifamily into land as well.
That's a really good nugget. I think that it would, I'd be interested to see lane investors partnering with these wholesalers that have these marketing strategies and systems up and running and say, hey, listen, I know that you don't know anything about land, but this is what I'm looking for. If you can go out and do this and partner, like we can make some big money happen, which is a really cool thing, right? So, in addition to the marketing, what other types of maybe strategies, skill sets, that land investors could really borrow from the house wholesaling or maybe even multifamily space that could really help to elevate and grow their business?
Yeah, really what it comes back to, as mentioned before, it comes back to it starts off as a sales and marketing game, but really what it turns into, it's a people game. It's understanding like how to, I see what a lot of people that get into real estate, whatever it is, whether it's land, whether it's single family houses, multifamily, whatever. Anytime you get into it, what usually happens is that they're starting off as they're a hustler. They're going out there and they're hustling. I'm sure you've been there before, Kendall. I'm trying to wholesale. I'm looking for that next deal. And you're just hustling, you're going after it and things like that. All of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm going to hire a virtual assistant, or I'm going to hire a lead manager. And now all of a sudden you got two people working with you. And now that eventually turns into, okay, I'm going to go ahead and hire an acquisitions person, or I'm going to hire an executive assistant. Now you have a team. You're somebody that basically went from a hustler to a solopreneur to an entrepreneur business owner running a business pretty quickly. And a lot of people don't understand, they don't know how to do that. Managing people is tough. Managing people is one of the toughest things ever. So I think in general, there are a lot of people out there that have been running single family real estate investing businesses for a while. And I feel I feel like a lot of the land people, there's a lot of people getting into land right now, but they're in that same boat of they don't have the infrastructure. They don't really know how to run the business, how to run the operations and manage people and everything like that, that maybe a single family investor might be able to go through and be able to do, because it's tough. It's crazy running the actual size of business and operation thing. There's a lot of things that go into that. So I think it's a lot of things of getting to the right communities, getting into the right rooms and talking to some single family investors. There's a lot of things that land investors can learn from that as well, because if you're going to scale your business, you're going to make it bigger, whatever it may be, you need to learn from people that have been through it and have been through the headaches that you're going through right now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that anyone who has a team would agree that managing that team, that's where the real work is, right? Yes, you can, like hiring is just half the battle. The other, it's a full-time job managing people. And so, can you give us some tips, maybe if someone's new to managing people or they're just now starting to grow their team, what kinds of things should they be considering to make sure that they're setting their team up for success?
Yeah, I'd say number one, patience, number one. It's one of those things that I feel like a lot of people, and I went through this. I made a ton of mistakes with this of hiring somebody. Oh yeah, I'll hire them. I'll have them watch a couple of training videos, and by day three, they should be good to go. They should be able to no, it's really, you need to actually have a training set up for them. Think about a 30, 60, 90-day plan. I know that within, whether it's single family, whether it's land or whatever, I know if I'm bringing on a lead manager, it's probably going to take about 45 to 60 days for that person to be up to speed, ready to go, to be 80% is 80% as efficient as what I could do it. If I'm hiring an acquisition manager for me, it's probably going to take 90 days till they're 80% of me, or things like that. Executive assistant's probably going to take about 30 days. Being able to understand the patience that comes along with it. But I'd say one of the biggest tips is before you hire that first person or hire the second person, whatever it may be, everything you're doing right now, just record it, document it in some way. There's going to be 10 things everybody does tomorrow that if they were to record it and write down a checklist of the things that they're doing as they go through that, all of a sudden you have that training that's ready for that next hire that you're bringing on or anything. And then come back to what I just said, at the beginning, it's just being patient with them too. It's not going to happen overnight. It's you're the owner, how to do these things. You're the person that's been doing it, but this is somebody that's probably coming in from something else and realizing it's going to take some time to get them trained up. And really it comes down to too, I will say, I just had this conversation today. When you're hiring somebody, you're going to pay for that person in two ways. Either you're going to pay for it with time or you're going to pay for it with money. If you don't have the time to train them, you are going to have to pay for that talent. You want to hire somebody that's already done it before, and that's going to come at a higher, and it's going to come at a higher cost, which is great. And you're going to still have to have the infrastructure that can support them to make them successful. So you can pay for that within the cost and stuff, but we're going to pay for it with time. Hiring somebody may be a lower cost, but you're going to have to put the time in to train them to get them up to the speed of what you need.
Yeah, that's so good. We see lots of times people say it's just as simple as like hiring a VA and then just plugging them in. Teaching people that skill actually takes time. It took us time to learn that as owners, right? Some people it takes 3 or 4 years just to get like a solid understanding of the business. And so we're not going to have just 2 day onboarding, right? If
Right.
that person has no experience. So I think that's a really good point. So, in your position with Collective Genius, can you talk a little bit about what are some of the common bottlenecks that you see to entrepreneurs, investors getting to the next level of their business? So let's say they've got started, they're getting some pretty consistent income, but now they're ready to really grow. We've talked about training, we've talked about building teams a little bit. What are some other bottlenecks that you see?
Yeah, one of the biggest ones I think is funding. So, and then we got some lenders on here and stuff right now as well, which is always great because that's what it comes down to. I was just out at an event in California last week and just talking to somebody about their business and what they're doing. And I think he did 5 flips last year, and but he said I think I missed out on 5 more because I didn't have the funding for them. So I think that's something that's a common bottleneck. If somebody's growing their business and being able to do more deals, even if you're wholesaling land or whatever it may be, there's going to be deals that you need funding lined up in some way to be able to that there's going to be they're going to be able to wholesale everything. You're not going to be able to just assign everything. You're going to get to the point where you're going to have to double close it or need some transactional funding or take it down or in some way. So one of the most common bottlenecks that we really see is as somebody's really trying to scale is capital. Whether it's being able to connect with a lender, whether it's being able to like raise funds themselves with private lending, or just get in contact with banks and have the right connections, or being able to do refinances and stuff. Funding is a huge bottleneck that we see, which is great. Love seeing lenders plugged into the OnlyLandFans community and stuff like that. It is much needed, especially when it comes to land, because it's a little bit unique compared to what a lot of lenders are out there. A lot of people have trouble sourcing or funding the land deals because it's a little bit unique. So love seeing the lenders plugged in here. The other thing is too, I will come back to everybody's always going to say is I need more leads. So it's always going to come back to marketing. So your salespeople are always going to say you need more leads and things like that. I will take that down to do you really, I always like to ask the question, do you need more leads or do you need to manage your funnel better? Do you need to have the process in place? I will say like coaching businesses all over the nation for a couple of years. Most of the time, I'd say 80% of the time when somebody thought it was a marketing problem, a leads problem, really digging into their situation was a lead management problem. It was understanding what they were really doing with the leads, how quickly they followed up with them. Did they have a nurture sequence in place for them? Did they have a follow-up system in place? How many times did they follow up? But even too of just okay, this lead came in today, you called them once, twice, like what happened and what happened after that and stuff like that, or even within the lead management of over qualifying leads. I think that's a very common occurrence of just maybe the person on the phone doesn't have the right motivation or you didn't have the right conversation. You caught them on a bad day. They're probably calling you because they're probably having a bad day anyway, dealing with some of the, stuff they're going through. But I think over qualifying is a huge thing that gets overlooked when it comes to the lead management process.
Yeah, those are some really fantastic points. The money is in the follow-up. Like, my gosh, I know it's so like attractive and exciting to get like fresh leads because they're like uncharted territory. We don't know anything about them, and it could be one of those leads is our next big deal. But the truth of the matter is lots of people have deals in sitting in their pipeline
Yeah.
that if we just followed up with, like I know that I I have been guilty of that before, not doing the amount of follow-up that's needed, especially people coming from a wholesale background to like maybe a land background where land just moves a little slower in some markets than houses.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my next point. Pointed out overqualifying leads. You have the unique position to have had some experience in multiple real estate niches. Can you talk about what motivation looks like in comparison to the different niches, right? Land owners' motivation does look different from single family motivation. And there's lots of different motivation within the single family realm. Can you talk a little bit about some of those differences and what you've seen when it comes to that big M word of motivation?
Yeah, I'd say really when you look at land versus single family, it's usually on the opposite ends of the spectrum where it's, hey, where a single family owner might be like, hey, I just inherited this house. I don't know what to do with it. I'm gonna get the tax bill there soon. I want to unload it. You're gonna have those situations where, hey, it's gonna get foreclosed on. I need to get rid of it. You're gonna have situations like that. So motivation, they're gonna be able to move. They're gonna want to move pretty quickly. Is a lot of times the situation they're in. Where land is usually, oh, I don't know. I've owned this for about 6 years and I've hunted on it twice, and it's just I don't really need it, but I like it. I might use it. I might go hunt there next year, or oh, I might rent it out. There's always a different conversation, but I would just come back to of just having that conversation. What do you need from it? What have you done with it lately? What's your plan for it? Let's talk through that and stuff like that. And usually if you get them talking about it, they're going to usually talk themselves in a circle and eventually get back to, I don't know if I really need this or not, or I don't know if I'm going to get back out there and stuff. Or just a lot of times too, the motivation is it's just putting unique situations in front of them too. Of obviously you can give them a cash offer, but when you can give them a creative financing offer, that might then then you kind of pique their interest a little bit more and target a little bit different motivation and stuff like that. It is very interesting. You talk about the uniqueness of the different niches, but I feel like the single family and land people are on completely opposite ends of the spectrum for the most part, 80% of the time.
Hey there, land fans. If you're enjoying this episode and would like to see more episodes like this, please be sure to let us know by liking and subscribing below.
That's such a good point. And I know that was one of the things that really struck me when I first moved from house wholesaling to land is like you talk to some people, like distress in houses is so clear, it's so apparent. Like house is falling apart. They're afraid of foreclosure, right? That's a entirely different set of circumstances to land. And so I think
Yep.
that you illustrated that perfectly. And I love the whole idea of bringing out some creative options, whether it's creative financing. Hey, let's JV on this, and you just let me get an entitlement deal rolling. There's so many
Yep.
different things that sellers have no clue about. And as land investors, we can really open that Pandora's box of all the opportunities.
Yeah, and that's what it comes back to, Kendall. And I'm sure you'll appreciate this too, as a former educator. But that's what it comes down to with a lot of stuff, whether it's motivation from the single family side or education or motivation from the land side. It still comes back to educating your customer, your client, your seller. It's if you can come to the point where you can actually educate them on what their options are, then you're playing a completely different game. And I will say I approach everything from the education side, whether I'm training somebody, whether I'm marketing, like I want to put the education piece out there, no matter what it is. If it's a seller, a buyer, a lender, I'm gonna take the education approach. But that's where when it comes down to whatever their motivation is, they don't generally they're in the situation, they have some type of motivation because they don't know what their options are. So if you can educate them on all the things that could possibly happen if they do take the deal or don't take the deal, or whatever it is, giving them that educational standpoint, it's going to put you in a better situation and they're going to appreciate it. You're going to appreciate you for it.
1,000%. I could not agree with that more. In my own land business, we don't use the term negotiation. We use the term educating. In the nurture process, we're educating,
Yep.
right? Because if they did say that they have some interest in letting the land go, but they have no idea what their options are. That's fantastic for us because then we can come in and through the process of education, we're not only building authority, but we're also creating motivation for them to say, hey, I really would like to get like a cash flow on my land. It's just sitting there. So I love that. That's perfect, beautiful point. Now, the topic of the headline that you sent in for our talk today was don't just plan and set goals for your business, use a winning implementation formula to attack them. So, what I'd love to do is talk a little bit about how do you go from deciding what your goals are to then creating an implementation plan? Can you give us a 30,000-foot view of that and some actionable steps that we could take to start putting goals into action?
Yeah. I think we all have the idea of they understand the premise a little bit of working your goal backwards. So you might have you have your 10-year goal or your 5-year goal, and then you work it back to a 3-year goal and then a 2-year goal and a 1-year goal. And for so long, like when we've feel like you're all, one of the first books a lot of entrepreneurs are going to read is EOS and traction and stuff, which is fantastic, amazing curriculum, amazing books right there. But really what it does, it takes your 1-year goal and then they tell you to break it down into quarterly rocks. And that's where a lot of people stop. And honestly, that's the easy part of it of like, okay, these are my goals for this year. Now I broke this. Now I have quarterly rocks. I have my goals for the rocks, but then what are you going to do to implement those rocks? I feel that's where a lot of people fall short. They're like, okay, I have my first quarter goals. Here's what I'm going to do, but they stop there. What you need to do from there is really break it down even more and even take it down to monthly, weekly, and things like that. So one of the things that we've really done and has really helped us out a ton, we always just found ourselves getting to our quarterly goals. And we always came up, if we had 8 quarterly goals, we'd always come up short on 2 of them. Because we'd always get to the end of the quarter and be like, oh, we're like, what? We're almost there. We're falling up short, or oh, I forgot we were even doing that type of thing. But one of the things that we've started doing, and it's been really good, and I've been able to work with a lot of real estate investors on this as well, of like basically take those yearly goals and then we break them down into like basically an implementation schedule, a monthly implementation schedule. So let's say that I want to hire a lead manager this year. Well, I got to figure out, okay, when am I going to hire that lead manager? All right, I'm going to hire that lead manager in, let's say I'm going to hire that lead manager in May. All right, now I need to look at the implementation schedule. So I'm going to put hire lead manager in May, but now I'm going to take a look back of like, all right, so I need to talk to a recruiter and probably need to talk to a recruiter, or actually I can start with, I'm going to write a job description. I'm going to put that in February. Then I'm going to talk to the recruiter in March, and then I'm going to have interviews in April. And it's, oh man, okay, so I got to hire that person. I got to do interviews and hire them in April. Maybe I can't even get them to May. But then even going a step further than that, it's like, okay, let's say I hire them and I have them in May. Now it's taking a look at like, all right, now it's going to take 2 months to onboard them. All right, so now I'm into July and now they're starting into the process. I'm probably not even going to see the benefits, or I'm not going to be able to add them to I'm not going to see the difference of hiring them on my P&L until maybe October, because now they're into the workflow and actually showing things and stuff like that. One of the things that we do is we take our yearly goals, break them into an implementation schedule, but then also showing how that implementation schedule can affect your budget, can affect your P&L throughout the year, and actually making sure it makes sense throughout. It's been a game changer for us of just understanding of like, all right, if I hire somebody here, how's it going to affect it's not going to affect my first quarter or second quarter. It's probably maybe going to affect my third quarter. Or if I'm going to start let's say I'm going to start a direct mail campaign. Okay. How long is it going to take to implement that? When is it going to get going? When am I going to see the results from it and stuff like that? So by being able to do that, we've been a lot more realistic on when we're getting things done throughout the year to hit our goals, but then we also know exactly when it's going to hit our bottom line, which has been fantastic. So literally me and my CEO, every week, we literally just go through our 1-page plan and our implementation schedule, and we know exactly where we are. So we're on the exact same page of where we are in every single project. Do we need to, move something up, move something back, prioritize something else over another thing? We're going to come up with some crazy idea next week and say, okay, where does this, if we put this into our implementation schedule, can we put it in? No, we can't. We are tapped out. We're at capacity. We either need to hire somebody else for it, or we just need to put it further down the line. So we're having conversations like that all the time. Then something I've done too is like coming back to the managing of the people thing. Everyone on my team basically has their individual implementation schedule as well. Our director of marketing, he has his own 1-page plan with his own implementation schedule. So when I meet with him on our same page once a week, we literally doing the same thing, just going through his implementation schedule. All right, where are we at with this project? What's going on with it? Do we need to move it up, move it back, prioritize something else over the other things? And being able to take that, it seems like such a small thing, but thinking it just knowing where we were with just setting quarterly rocks to actually having a monthly implementation schedule, it's completely changed the way we look at business and putting us on pace for what we know we're going to do. And honestly, just even coming back to the budget thing, by doing that, I think we came within, with what we projected and where we ended up, we came with like in $60,000 of our final like P&L at the end of the year and stuff. So we were like right on pace for it, which was amazing.
Yeah, that is so cool. I've heard the idea of tying action steps and action items to goals, but I love that idea of let's take a look at some projected P&Ls and what that would look like. And because that's what we're doing this for, right? It's not
Yeah.
just, oh yeah, I love marketing. Like the reason why we market is because we want it to affect our bottom line in a positive way. So Can you talk a little bit about expectations and the role that plays when setting goals? And so, what I mean by this is for people that are familiar with traction, where they say, okay, we're going to break it down into quarterly goals. Let's say the end goal in this example is to make $1 million this year. What does it make sense to say, well, then I'm just going to mathematically break it down. There are 4 quarters. We're going to split $1 million into four, and we're going to make $250,000 our first quarter, and second, third, and fourth, and we'll hit 1 million. Is it that easy, or what
Yeah.
do the expectations actually look like, realistic standpoint?
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people do, but realistically, you're probably going to do something throughout the year. That's if you're not doing 200, if you want to make $1 million and you're not making $250,000 at the end of the year, you're probably not going to make $250,000 in Q1.
Right.
So understanding, okay, I know that with what we're doing or what I have projected right now, maybe I'm going to be at 150 by the end of Q1. That's what we've been used to. That's what we're doing. Then it's okay, what am I actually going to do to what am I going to put in place? Am I going to put people in place? Am I going to put strategies in place? Am I going to do extra marketing, extra sale, whatever it may be? What am I putting in place throughout the year? And then basically being able to see the increase throughout based off of what you're doing. A typical year for us, or in that situation, it might be 150 in Q1, then maybe it is 250 in Q2, but then it gets up to 350, and then it increases throughout the year and stuff like that, which is a lot more realistic when you're looking at things versus just all right, there's 4 quarters in a year. Let's just divide it by four, and that's what it is. So I would hope that everybody goes into the year of, hey, you're going to get better throughout the year. So there should be some increases that you should see throughout the year. And what are you going to do to hit those and things?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it's really shaped more like a bell curve, curvilinear, than it is just so straight. We're going to increase 250 every quarter. Yeah, that's really good. I wanted to chat with you a little bit about how do you go about deciding what type of business you want? You started off the interview by talking about what type of business do you want? If someone's listening to this and they've been a deal shop, meaning they've just kind of ragtag put together deals and done deals, and now they want to start creating a business around it. A lot of times I talk to a lot of people that say, I just want to make a lot of money. Great. Then what does that look like? So can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about some things to consider when figuring out what you actually want your business to look like? Because I think that's a really huge point, and it's one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, for sure. I literally just had this conversation with a team on Tuesday. So I'm going to use this as an example of I jumped on a call with them and they were just going through I could tell they were just all over the place a little bit many of us entrepreneurs are. And
Yeah.
they were talking through, they've done some wholesale, they've done some flips, and actually they've done a couple land deals and stuff like that. They've done some new builds and they couldn't quite figure out, they're having trouble with marketing, and they've been talking to a lot of ad agencies and marketing agencies, and they were talking to them about, hey, maybe you should get out of Indianapolis and maybe you should do some stuff virtually and things like that. Okay, yeah, it makes sense. You could pick up more leads, and we could build a team there. We could, reproduce what it is. But so they were telling me this, and really what it came back to is getting to your point of figuring out what business you need. That's what it all comes back to. I just had that conversation with them of like, what's the end goal? Like, why did you guys get into this? What is it all about for you? And what it was for them is what it is for a lot of people that get in this industry. It's passive income. They wanted to acquire rentals and have passive income of, I think their goal was like maybe $10,000 or something like that of passive income for each of them within 5 years. All right, that makes sense. So then understanding too of like, all right, guys, so if you want to have passive income, I assume that's the rental properties. Yes. Okay. I assume are you going to manage them yourselves, or are you going to have a property manager? We're going to have a property manager. Okay. Well, that's good. Okay. So do you want to have multiple property managers, or do you want to have just a couple property managers? Probably just a couple would be a lot easier. I'm like, yes. So you guys have a business right now in Indianapolis. You guys are structuring, you already have a couple of rental properties there right now. Think about this. If you go a virtual model, the biggest part of doing deals over and over is so you can source some of the deals yourselves. You can keep some. You could wholesale some. You can flip some. You can also keep some to add for your rental. Yeah, that's right. That's why we're doing that. Like, all right, well, if you're doing virtual wholesaling or virtual flipping, like you're going to be all over the place. Are you going to accumulate some of those properties and stuff like that? So just going through that exercise, really what I'm trying to say here is it all comes back to what that end goal is. When you're building your business, you always need to keep in mind of what that end goal is. So as we're having this conversation, it all comes back to, guys, you guys need to stay in Indianapolis because that's where you're going to have your rental portfolio. Every decision you make on your business needs to come down to how are you going to have a rental portfolio to earn $10,000 passive income through having rental. Like every decision you make has to come back to that. we're gonna get sidetracked. We're gonna do some other things and that, but everything has to come back there and stuff. So when somebody's going through that thing of just coming back of what kind of business do I want? How am I going to grow this thing? What am I going to do? It's going to come down to what is your end goal? What do you actually want to get out of it? And every decision has to come down to based off of that. What I see happen a lot of times though, and I called them out on this a little bit, was like, guys, you want to go virtual because it's easy. You guys are trying to take the easy route out. We all know that this industry, you can do some things that are going to come easy to you, and it's going to like there's going to be some little things here, but the reality is anybody that's going to do something to reach their end goal, you're going to have to go through some hard times. You're actually going to have to do the work. It's not just going to come here and there. You got to do the work to it. So guys, you actually do what you need to do to get to that end goal, do it right here and stuff. So I'd say that's when people are figuring out what kind of business they want, it always comes back to what is your end goal? What do you actually want to get out of it? And then what is the work that you need to do to get there, and try to take as less shortcuts as possible, even though that kind of sounds like it's going to take a little bit longer. The reality is when you put the right processes and systems in place, you're going to get there a little bit quicker, and it's going to be a lot more fulfilling, and you're going to actually have something that you're proud of.
Yeah, no, that is a fantastic insight. I think that it's really easy. I know that I get caught up in that when I first got started. If someone asked me what my end goal was, I answer with a number in mind. But it's not just about the number, it's also about the lifestyle that you want. Exactly what you mentioned. They wanted passive income. That's very different from, okay, I want to have a fix and flip business.
Yeah, and actually it's passive income, so they could move back to Mexico to be with his wife's family and stuff like that. So it goes past that number thing. There's always a
Yeah.
bigger reason of what that why is and stuff. Yeah.
That's really good. Drilling down on the why, so important into building your business. You mentioned traction earlier. I'm a huge traction fan. I geek out over building out systems and processes. Are you a visionary or an integrator?
I am more visionary than integrator. So
Yeah.
I have to I'm sitting in the operation seat, but I have to push myself to be as process oriented as what we really need. If I look at, I'm a big fan of like the personality assessments, stuff like that. I'm a big fan of the predictive index. If you look at my predictive index, I'm a promoter. I'm somebody you should probably never hire for as a typical COO on paper, but I have the transferable skills to, as being a teacher, I'm organized, I'm creative, I can do all those kind of things and put it together. Also have the experience background to do it. But what that is, though, I know I have to put myself in that box to do that a little bit more and focus on that a little bit more. And if you're ever looking at somebody's personality assessments, hiring from them, it doesn't mean they can't do it. What it will tell you, though, is like how long they can do it. So there's certain things I know when I'm completing the systems, I'm completing the processes, I have to catch myself and be like, all right, I need to go have a conversation with an investor. Like I need to go talk to somebody and talk about what's going on in their business, because I need that interaction. I need to get out of just the paper stuff and get off the Zoom a little bit and go talk to somebody.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I love that. How long they can do it. I consider myself a textbook visionary, but I'm also a functioning integrator. I can
Yeah.
integrate systems and processes if I need to. But when you said how long you can do it, as soon as I set it up and I see that it's rolling, I'm like, okay, I need to get out of the weeds because this is not my jam. So
Yeah.
completely get that. What would you consider to be your superpower?
Yeah, I think my superpower is connection. So I love just connecting with people and connecting people. So just really enjoy that. It's something that it's I think it stems back from growing up. I feel like I was missing part of that a little bit. We've talked about that a lot of times at CG of basically, hey, what were you missing in your childhood and what can you get out of this community and stuff like that. And that's one of the things I feel like I was missing. Of I never knew exactly what I could do or what I could be. Or that's why I ended up being a teacher. My mom just one day, I was like, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. She's like, why don't you be a teacher? And that's why I became a teacher essentially. But I never knew what I could do or what I could be within my life. So I think it's one of the things I really enjoy doing is connecting people with. If I hear you talking about something that you enjoy, something that you like, or something you're interested in, I'm going to connect you with some people that are like that, just to spark your interest and get that going, to see if there's something else that can come out of it, help you fulfill your dreams and stuff like that. So that's what I really enjoy doing, is just connecting other people.
I love that. So someone that's such an important skill too in our industry is connecting and making connections. So if someone's listening to this and they're struggling with that and it's not their strong suit, what are a couple of tips you can give them to say, hey, maybe this is a resource you could check out, this is an exercise you can do to help them beef themselves up in the connections area?
in the connections area. I feel like I think it's just expanding your circle a little bit. I guarantee they have a circle of 3 people. Try to get that circle to 5 people, and then try to get try to get that circle to 7 people. Just try to increase it a little bit more and a little bit more. I'm somebody too. I'm not a great networker. I'm not good at it. I don't enjoy it. It takes a lot of energy out of me and stuff like that. But I enjoy talking to people, so I need to have like deep, meaningful conversations with people. But it's just I had to go through that and just expanding my network little by little, and that made all the difference in the world. And I'd say too, is just like putting yourselves out there. Talk about what you enjoy doing. Talk about what you want to do and what your goals are, and don't be afraid to never think of they don't want to hear about this, or I don't, I'm afraid to like talk about what I want to do. Just talk about it to anybody and everybody, and put it out there, and your connections will expand and your circle will expand as well.
That's really good. That's really good. So, what's your definition of success? I know it's different for everyone. So, what's yours?
My definition of success, I think number one is just that make sure that my wife and I we reach our goals that we want to together. So that's always my number one thing. What I always come back to is, are we on the same page? Are we going to do everything that we want to, that we want to accomplish, and that we want to hit? Um, I'm a little bit different when it comes to, I'm somebody that I still struggle with, hey, what is your purpose? What is your goal and stuff like that? Like I struggle with that. I still struggle with that day to day, because what I found that I'm good at is I'm really good at helping other people reach their goals and hit their success and stuff. So
Mm.
I've realized like success for me is helping other people hit their limit, or figure out what success is for them and stuff like that. I would say that's like my internal of success and stuff like that. So it's outwardly, I'd say in general, success is being happy. I just want to be happy. If I'm happy with what I'm doing, I'm going to consider that success. That's a little bit of a cheesy answer. That's who I am, man.
Yeah, it's great. Life's too short not to be happy,
Yeah.
right? Like you enjoyed the journey a lot more. I love that. Are there any authors, entrepreneurs, thought leaders that you like to follow? Who are some of your favorites?
Yeah, luckily I've been able to work with two of the people that there are 2 or 3 people that I really respect, and like I owe a lot of my success to. Come back that the success where Brett Snodgrass is he's one of my mentors, one of my role models, super successful investor here in Indianapolis, but just a great family man, a great man of God, and things like that. So I really look up to him. Does an amazing job. And then Gary Harper as well with Sharper Business Solutions. He has a couple books out there right now. He's an amazing author, amazing person, amazing human being. He's made such a huge difference in so many different businesses and stuff. And then right now, my CEO, Jason Medley, is just somebody. I've been very blessed to be able to work with Brett, Gary, and Jason on. They've really helped my trajectory, helped my business career, helped me grow as a person, helped me grow as a man, helped me grow as a husband, all those things. So with what Jason's created now with NCG and everything he's doing for all these different entrepreneurs, all these different real estate investors is just amazing. Within my circle, those are like the 3 people that I really just hold to a higher standard, upper level. Outside of that, it's John Maxwell. Anything with John Maxwell, I love listening to. I really dig into. It's a leadership thing that I think is I always thought that I was growing up, I was always like the captain of my sports teams or president of my class in high school, or president of my fraternity in college. I was drawn to leadership skills, and I always said, "No, I was a born leader." That's crap. That's crap. That's not true. Nobody's a born leader. Like it's a skill that you have to develop. So John Maxwell is somebody like I 100% just look up to, and I just devour anything that he writes and stuff like that, and love his podcast and everything. So he's definitely somebody I look up to.
So good. Yeah, I'm a big John Maxwell fan as well. I was one of those leaders all throughout school as well. And when I found John Maxwell, I was in high school. Yeah, it's pretty game changing.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff for sure. So, what is one of the biggest surprises you've had on your journey in the real estate space?
I'd say the biggest surprise, honestly, I think it comes back to maybe the first week I was working with Brett. I was just like, how is this business possible long term? Like, I didn't understand how many, like looking at like, how are there that many houses?
Mm.
How is there that much land? There are like this, like real estate investing it's here to stay. It's not gonna go. There's always gonna be houses to be sold. There's always gonna be land that needs to be bought. It's always gonna be there. So I think that was like my first click of, oh man, this is like unlimited to be scalable of what you can actually do within the real estate space. The next thing within that kind of falls in the same realm is there's so many different things. There's so many different ways that you can earn a living or make money, build a business through real estate. So it's not just as simple as, hey, I'm going to list a property and sell it, or buy a property and flip it. There's so many different ways that you can generate money and stuff like that. So it was so cool to see that, of even if you take a single plot of land. There's so many different things. There's so many different ways that you can buy it. There's so many different ways you can sell it. There's so many different things you can do with it. So it's really cool. And that really pulls at my like the creativity like part of my mind of just like opening up and figuring out like what's the best situation, or what are all the types of situations for it, and then taking that and turning it into a math problem of what is the most profitable thing I can do with it. And then you can also look at it as passion wise, as what is the most like impactful thing for the world that can do with it as well. So when you're looking at real estate, there's the creativity side, there's the analytical side, and then there's the impact side as well that you can do with things.
Yeah, I love that so much. What a great mindset shift in that abundance mentality of there will always be deals. There will always be deals. We hear a
Yeah.
lot in the space, is land getting too saturated? Wholesaling's too saturated. But I love that simple mindset shift of there's always going to be deals out there, especially if you're creative, right? Like
Yeah.
that's really the juice, I think.
There's always going to be deals out there. Sometimes we have to get better in order to get
Yeah,
some of those deals. They're just getting
absolutely.
more competitive and stuff. But a lot of times it's no matter what we're doing right now, we can always do it better. So real estate were a reminder of that pretty quick.
So good. Absolutely so good. If you could go back and tell yourself three pieces of advice when you were just starting in the real estate space, what would they be?
Three pieces of advice when I was just starting the real estate space. So I'd definitely be number one is document everything. Like I was saying before, if you're going to train anybody, just document anything and everything. Have the systems and processes in place. I'd say number two, never stop talking about finding money. Always make sure that you have money available. Make sure you know what you can do, having that money there, and always never stop talking with money. So we always had bank money lined up, hard money lined up, private money lined up, but just always be talking about that. So have that there so you don't miss out on any deals. Then number three, I think it just comes back to never stop educating yourself. Like always just continue educating yourself on on different strategies we can do. Like we just talked about, there's so many different things you can do with a piece of land, or there's so many different things you can do with a house, but knowing what all those things are and having all those options at your fingertips to where you can put it into a calculator and basically, hey, this is going to be the best situation for what I can do with this. So I'd say with that, just that'd be my number three thing. Just never stop educating yourself on stuff.
Yeah, spoken like a true teacher. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I love it.
It all comes back
So
to education.
it does. It all comes back to education. I'm right there with you, my friend. So, what's your biggest passion or goal you'd like to achieve at this point in your life?
Yeah. So one of the things I really just enjoy is is how I can give back to other people. We do this thing, and I'll talk about CG here just real quick. Of just like we do something called Generous Genius. So where we're able to fund, basically we have a fund that we're able to I guess engage in the philanthropy projects that our members have going on with them. So we have one member that goes down to Ensenada, Mexico twice a year, and he does house builds for families that are in need that could never afford a house. There, I did it last year. Now, last November, basically people are living in shacks, and we actually build them a house within 2 days. So he has that project. Brett Snodgrass has a project where he goes down to Guatemala and works with an orphanage, and Stephanie Betters has a project where she goes to Honduras and works with orphans down there and stuff. So we're able to work through the different members and fund these different things. Really, my passion. It's not a long term thing. This is just an immediate thing of what's in my mind. I want to figure out how we can help these investors. Like we work with so many different amazing investors throughout the nation and all these different cities. How can we help impact them locally as well? There's so many different times where, I bought and sold so many houses here in Indianapolis that I'm just like, man, how can I give back? We're driving through these neighborhoods and going on these acquisition appointments where you can see the impact that's there. But how can we fund a park? How can we do this? What I'm looking at right now is like, how can we bring the philanthropy efforts that we do, that we look at globally? I think a lot of us do, is like, how can we bring them locally into the different businesses that we're a part of within our membership of CG?
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. Can you talk a little bit about your approach to philanthropy as it relates to your business? Like how
Yeah.
do you merge those two things as an approach?
I think it's one thing of just like we were talking before about just growing as a team and building a team and managing people is a very tough thing. One of the easiest ways, or I think one of the best ways to engage your team and build cohesiveness with them is to serve with each other. So there's one part of philanthropy of being able to write a check and be able to get something done. But when you actually go out there as a team and serve together, it forms a completely different bond, which is pretty impactful. A little bit ago, I mentioned the going down to Ensenada, Mexico, and building some houses down there. It's funny is I went down to Mexico twice last November. One of them was with a group of people that it was a fun trip. It was we were at a ridiculous house, had a pool, had a staff that served us drinks and made ridiculous food and stuff like that. That was one experience. I had this other experience with a different group of people that I was able to build a house with and see that, and then not just work with them, but also see them with their families, with their wives, with their children, stuff like that. Two completely different experiences, very close together and stuff like that. And I will say that I'm closer to those people that I went down and served with than I think I am the other people too, just because of the experience. It's completely different when you're doing something and you're serving together and helping other people out, the bond that forms. So if you're able to do that with your team and with the people that you work with, it's going to help you guys get to that next level. Then it comes back to too, if there's, you can have goals around money and around like net profit and things like that. But if you also have goals that are built around serving others and making the world a better place, your team will be better for it.
Beautiful. I love that. That's really cool. I know I've worked with a lot of different investors and I love seeing the differences in the companies and not saying one's right or one's wrong, but there's definitely a difference when you see service as a core value in some of the companies, whether it's service in the way that they handle their customers on the buy side and the sell side, or service on the team, or service somewhere in the community or even globally. But I definitely think that there is something to it, just brings a different element to it that makes it a little bit more meaningful to different people.
It makes it a team when you have a core value around service and you actually are hiring and firing with your core values in mind around service and stuff like that. You're actually going to have a team. They're going to work together. They're going to help each other out and things like that. So it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, there you go. There's a nugget, right? Like, how do you build better teams? Start building around service. That's a key component. I love that. I want to thank you so much for giving to us today, Brian. This has been absolutely fantastic. What are you currently looking for in terms of connections or resources that we can give back to you?
Yeah, I think my big thing right now is I want to connect with people that are in that mindset of, hey, I know how to do deals and I have an established business, but I'm ready to scale it. I want to get into a community, or I want to find my people. I know that's where a lot of us are, is especially growing. Is when I first got into real estate, there was nobody in my circle. I couldn't talk to my family about what I was doing with business. I couldn't talk to anybody in my circle. I had to like find my community. I had to find the people that were doing the things that I wanted to be doing and had already been through the trials and tribulations and stuff like that. And I needed to find those people that were in it or had already done it. So that's what I want to find. I want to connect with those people that are in that mode of, hey, I know how to do some deals. I have a solid real estate business, but I'm ready to take it to the next level and find my community that can help me take it to the next level. So any connections, like that's what I'm looking for. And I'm more happy to talk with anybody that's in that situation.
Excellent. If someone's in that situation, they want to connect with you, what's the best way that they can contact you?
Yeah, they can find me on social media. So Brian Snider on there, or on Facebook, on Instagram, the Indy Snider on there. And then or you can just email me at brian@thecollectivegenius.com.
Excellent. We'll have all of Brian's contacts and socials in the show notes for sure. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for being on with us this Thursday. Be sure to catch us next week with another interview. Brian, it's been an absolute pleasure and honor. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. If you're interested in hearing from other 6- and 7-figure land flippers about how they've built and run their businesses, then check out my group, OnlyLandFans, where I do a live interview each week inside the group. You can grab that link at the description below. Until then, be great, have a great week, and catch you in the next one.